So either you go by like, this is the native land or this is the current power. There's two arguments to control of land. Either the Native Americans, this is their native land, or America that now exists here, they're the ones controlling it. And it just so happens that the Jews are both. They're also the native people and they're also the ones controlling it. My quarrel is being able to bring this group of people that truly care for the Palestinian rights and bringing this group of people that truly cares about the Jewish rights and finding a way for them to talk to each other instead of fight each other. Shalom, my name is Rudy Rochman. We're outside of the 2020 AIPAC Policy Conference, Hebrew year 5780. Our mission is to engage with the protesters outside, to break out of our echo chambers, and to either expose anti-Semitism or to create genuine, nuanced conversations in order to write a better future together. Let's see what we get. Yalla. Why do you believe that the land of called Judea and Samaria, also referred to as the West Bank, is not the land of the Jewish people? When you dig in the land, you find their history.
You don't mind, brother? Can we get back to the protest? I'm here to discuss. That's why I'm here. I do appreciate I don't feel.
I'm not here to antagonize us.
The Jewish people they've had a very rough go. They've been discriminated. They've been brutalized.
Still.
That is true. I'm with you on that. So have the Native Americans. We could talk about a just resolution in the abstract. I don't think that's what politics is about.
No, I'm not.
Politics is about what people are ready for next.
Yes,
and what we do
absolutely.
from here.
100% agree
And
with
if
you.
you go with international law, it's very clear. Israel leaves the occupied Palestinian.
But what international? If you keep referencing international law, the reality that exists on the ground. I live in Israel. And there's no future without either population coming together and finding a way to live together. Because Israelis aren't going to disappear and Palestinians aren't going to disappear.
Correct, but they need to leave the occupation.
So what do you mean by that? You mean that Jews need to leave the land that their ancestors come from? You dig in the land, you find Jewish history. You don't find Arab history.
Again, we could talk about history. We could talk about the abstract. We can talk about.
It's not abstract. It's historical record. So either you go by like, this is the native land or this is the current power. There's two arguments to control of land. Either the Native Americans, this is their native land, or America that now exists here, they're the ones controlling it. And it just so happens that the Jews are both. They're also the native people and they're also the ones controlling it.
So I'm for the law. That's what I'm for. I'm for international
but in international law, in the UN, it says that
it's very, very clear on that. Israelis need to leave the occupied territory.
Why? Do Arabs need to leave Israel?
Well, your quarrel is not with me, sir.
No, it's not.
It's with international
law states
that if you think that Israel's above the law, which is what you're saying.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Okay, so you're for the law.
The law states, international law, that if you take over land in a defensive war, you're allowed to take it as your land.
And it was ruled as not defensive, including the IDF said that as well.
No, all the surrounding Arab countries attacked war in 1967.
And that's the propaganda version.
That's
but have
not
you looked at the
because,
actual statement from the IDF?
So what did they do? They blocked off the Suez Canal, and that's an act of war. And they were preparing Arab armies that they have proof for. So I've been speaking all day. And when they blocked off the Suez Canal, when Egypt did that, that's an act of war, and they were preparing armies to fight off Israel. So in 1967, it is considered a defensive war.
Again, your quarrel is not with me.
No, it's not with you.
It's with the United Nations.
No, my quarrel is being able to bring this group of people that truly care for the Palestinian rights and bringing this group of people that truly cares about the Jewish rights and finding a way for them to talk to each other instead of fight each other. The Palestinian Authority and Hamas does not have interest, and you would probably make the argument, I don't agree with you, that the Israeli government doesn't have that
I disagree with that because don't forget, the Hamas platform, not the Hamas charter, the Hamas platform on which they were elected.
How can you excuse the charter?
They respect Israel's right to exist in peace and security. Not as a Jewish state, an ethnocentric state, a racist state, but they do respect...
The right of Israel to exist is an ethno-racist state?
Not as an ethnic state, ethnocentric.
So does, Tibet have a right to exist as Tibet? Does India have a right to exist as India?
But that's a separate situation.
No, but what I'm saying is, why do you have a problem with Israel existing as its own self-determinant state? Meaning, China, it's Chinese people. Judea, it's Jewish people. We're not a religion. We're people from a civilization called Judea.
I'm for democracy.
Me too. There's a democracy in Israel.
You can't be for ethnocentricity.
Let's say Nepal was a democracy, okay? In Nepal, you have Nepalese people. So you can have Nepalese people, Nepalese culture, Nepalese language, and it's still being a democracy.
So you defend what Saudi Arabia does?
What does Saudi Arabia do that you're saying?
They're completely ethnocentric.
I'm not defending anything that Saudi Arabia does. What I'm saying...
But you're defending it when Nepal does it.
No, what I'm saying is that in Israel, you have a Jewish civilization that exists because that's the native people. and you have non-Jews living there, equal in part of the civilization. Now, in the West Bank, Judea and Samaria, there's a split amongst the land that is causing injustice for both. I'm against the wall. I'm against the checkpoints. I'm against a lot of the things that exist. You would realize that the problem is that most of us agree on so much that we don't agree with. I'm against the U.S. foreign aid to Israel. I'm against so many of these things because it actually prevents both populations from finding a way to really live together, because my kids will be born there. This is not I'm a fan of Israel, I'm supporting from outside. My kids will be born there, and so are the kids of the Palestinians. So at some point, I want my kids and their kids to live together. That is my interest coming in this. And so the problem is we're never able to actually have conversations, and I think it's those conversations that will actually allow us to humanize both sides and have the conversations to figure out what is necessary to exist in order to live together. Because a lot of Israelis have never engaged with the Palestinian narrative, and a lot of Palestinians have never engaged with the Israeli narrative. And because that, we're living in two completely opposing realities, where we're the antagonists of each other's stories, and we're not able to come together.
Right. So we agree to that extent.
Yeah.
But I'm for the law.
Let's talk about morals. Let's talk about morality.
We can talk about morality.
Yeah,
we can talk about the abstract.
Because so many laws are unjust, right? Once upon a time in Europe, it was the law for Jews to be killed.
That's true.
Okay, so laws aren't always just. So let's not just go, we need to believe in this because it's the law. We need to talk about what is right and what is wrong. And there's a lot wrong happening to Palestinians, and there's a lot wrong happening to Israelis. If you look at the law, like United Nations voted that Israel should have a right to exist and should be partitioned. The Balfour Declaration states that Israel should be given to, these are all things that I don't use as sorts of legitimacy, but that's the same law that you're talking about.
The Balfour Declaration is different.
So the Balfour Declaration is the law that was imposed on the land that was currently controlling the land. I disagree with the Balfour Declaration, because imagine if the Balfour Declaration stated that Israel shouldn't have a right to exist. Would you support that? No. So I can't pick and choose certain laws that I agree with. I have to look at the legitimacy.
Israel must leave the occupied Palestinian territory.
But they're not occupied, because natives living in the reservation.
According to you, but I'm for the law.
But natives living in their reservations is not occupation.
Yeah, I mean, that's your opinion.
No, but
this isn't my opinion.
But there are other international laws that were written that if you take land in a defensive war, it's not occupied territory. Furthermore, without even giving the context that the native population are from there.
Yeah, but those who govern those laws disagree with you. So I think you need to go back and check your resources.
Just so because people sitting in New York City from Saudi Arabia on the Council of the Humanitarian Rights that have interest in keeping conflicts going because they're also profiting from the situation, that gives legitimacy to tell the native population that they shouldn't have a right to live in Judea and Samaria. The UN clearly has interests. It's an interest group. That different countries make coalitions to push their own interests politically. It's not like we actually care about the peoples on the ground. Right? They don't care about the Israelis, they don't care about the Palestinians.
Well, the United Nations isn't some nebulous organization. It's an international consensus.
Yeah, but who puts the ambassador in the United Nations?
Well, it's a complicated procedure.
It's the president or the prime minister of the country.
I would trust the United Nations before I would an individual state actor.
No,
who's been occupying.
I'm not saying I'm not saying state actors. I'm saying the peoples. Yeah. Because the people that are the ambassadors to the UN represent their governments, and the governments all have interests. And none of that interest always is about how to get my country to move forward and not actually how to help the people. Right. So I think that the conversation should be surrounding the peoples. For me, in my opinion, you can disagree. As someone that lives there, the only way to actually change the status quo is for the populations to come together. And I agree with you that any foreign government should not impose anything on the population. That's why I'm against the foreign aid. That's why I'm against the peace plan. That's why I'm against all of these things. There's many reasons why I'm against the peace plan. But I don't believe any foreign government should come and impose to the peoples there how to live. Most of the people here that I've seen, I've met them before because I come here a few years. And yes, there are many people here that aren't.
I've seen you before. I come here for 6 years now.
And I've always engaged respectfully.
You've been respectful.
I've never raised my voice. I don't have a message of hate. I could be inside warm, listening to speakers and meeting friends. Instead, I'm outside here trying to build on conversations to find resolution. Anyways, it was nice having a conversation.
Just
Rudy.
I'm a big fan of you, brother.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm from Miami. Yeah, I got you.
What's up?
Yeah, really.
Taught my son well, thank you.
Nice
He's
to
out
meet
here
you.
debating all the time. I say, follow your lead, calm, right?
Yes.
Calm and factual.
Yes. And also understanding their narrative to be able to have nuanced conversations that actually get somewhere.
Yeah.
Because we tend to be speaking always over one another.
Yeah.